Broadcasting from Baltimore, Maryland, this is 5x3 Radio, where strength is for everyone. I'm your host, Emily Sokolinski, owner of 5x3 Training, a strength and conditioning gym in Baltimore, along with my co-host, Rebecca Fishburne, founder of Cornerstone Strength Maryland. Each week, Rebecca and I will discuss the ins and outs of strength training, why there is a no one-size-fits-all approach, and why strength is so important in our daily lives. Thanks for spending some time with us today. Now, on with the show. All right, hi everybody, welcome back to 5x3 Radio. Rebecca and I are here today. We were actually going to record this a couple days ago, but then there are trees being taken down outside of Rebecca's house.
Yeah,
So
2 days in a row. Once at my
we can
neighbor's
hear the
and
noise.
then once at ours. Yeah, and then like I was saying, today Todd's home, so it's a little noisy also
Okay.
because of that. So we'll see.
But
how this
yeah, I mentioned that to Diego. I said, we actually didn't record on Wednesday. He said, why? Oh, why not? I said, well, there's some noise outside of Rebecca's house. Trees were being taken down. He goes, just close the window. I was like, windows were closed because still here. He goes, she needs a better microphone. She needs a better sound canceling, whatever. I was like, well, I'm looking at microphones. Somebody might get a Christmas present this year. If you're very good, you get a Christmas present.
I keep participating.
That's right. You get a participation trophy. So we moved it to today, to Friday, and now there's actually not as much noise, which is great. So it's all good, and it's actually not 1,000 degrees in my room either. Finally, even with the sun coming in. So we thought we'd spend a little bit of time today talking about what's the best resistance program out there. I mean, yes, Rebecca and I are starting strength coaches. We love the program. We like barbells. We like teaching the lifts. But is that the only way, right? Is that the only way, this or the highway kind of thing? What are other ways of resistance training? When people talk about resistance training, that really is the key, because you say resistance and people can think of bands, they can think of kettlebells, they can think of barbells, they can think of dumbbells. So we thought today we just kind of start to throw out a few things that I guess maybe a few of our opinions, our thoughts about training and in regards to ourselves or in regards to our clients, and kind of getting away from a all or nothing approach, I think is the topic. Is that right, Rebecca?
Yeah. Well, I mean, because a lot of times I think, especially when people are first introduced to and converted to a starting strength program, it is a little bit cult-like in that people are all in and they want to do it the right way. And a lot of times you get people, especially when they're just starting out and have, read all of the information, who sort of look down or disparage other ways of lifting.
Yes. And yeah, go ahead.
Todd's trying real hard not to make noise. He's actually heading downstairs to lift. It's very exciting.
Okay. So see, he's going downstairs to do some kind of resistance program. Yeah. There is that mentality, and it's actually nice that most people who come to my gym for to join as a member are not, either they're familiar with the book or they're not familiar at all. And when I tell them the program that we have, I say, we use the model. We use the starting strength model. Are you familiar with it? Some people say yes, and some people say no. And all they know is they're lifting with a barbell. And we're putting them on our program, and they're doing our program, and they're following our instructions and our coaching, and they're feeling good and making and progressing and making great improvements in their technique, in their movement, and in their strength.
So with people that are coming to your gym, like, they may or may not have heard of starting strength, but they know going in that what they're doing is talking primarily about barbell training.
Yes.
And so like on the other end of the spectrum, a lot of the people that I get in a commercial gym, I have to sort of do a little bit more sales work to convince them that what they might want to do is some barbell work. A lot of people in a commercial gym are, what they see and what they imagine is maybe what they read in some magazines, which might be some good compound movement, but generally with a kettlebell or with with dumbbells. But a lot of times, especially older people at the gym, and like older, I mean, like, 70, 80, 60, even. A lot of times their preference is towards machines. And so, I have a client at this point who's 80, and I inherited him from a different trainer. And he came in with some pretty strong ideas of his own. He used to own a gym, and he's like, he said to me, "I know what I'm doing. I just need somebody to hold me accountable."
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
And he's not training in a way that I would necessarily design for someone. But, and that's sort of like where I was sort of thinking about this topic.
Yes.
And one of the other trainers who knows me pretty well and knows my starting strength bent and bias was like, "Oh, well, those two together, that ought to be interesting." So I was sort of thinking about that. And go ahead. What were you going to say about?
No, I think that that's, you kind of hit it on the head. I mean, we both are strength coaches. We use barbell training as a way to get our clients stronger, help them move better. And that's why I opened my gym, right? I opened my gym because I just, Diego started the program first, and then I got on board with it. And this is after years of being in a gym, but, using machines, using dumbbells. Somehow this clicked better, right? It clicked for me. It was simple. It was doable. I could see my progress pretty quickly. We could help each other out. And then as I got better as a lifter myself, and I got better as a coach, it all kind of came together. And I really pursued this type of training simply because it's much more dosable than a dumbbell or a kettlebell, right?
Yeah,
I mean, you can start very, very small. You can start with this very little weight with somebody, and get them moving better with that little bit of weight, and then incrementally add. So that's why I like training with barbells, because it is more natural human movement in a sense. Squatting and picking things up and putting things over your head, but it's intimidating.
Yeah.
It can be intimidating.
Along those lines, though, too, about like if we're espousing the benefits of barbells or whatever, right? You can start someone at a lighter weight. It's easily dosable. Another really big factor for me, I'm 5'1", and I think I'm 5'4", right? So when like someone my size tries to use any of the machines in the gym, they're not built for my size anyway. So one of the things that's great about barbells, but I think you could probably also say the same of kettlebells or dumbbells, is that the movement pattern is my own. It's not me having to conform to a movement pattern that is established by a machine that's built for something much bigger than myself. So that for me is always like a big selling point.
Yeah. And that's and many of those really expensive machines are very piss poor in their design. We don't work out when we're on vacation, right? But we always, if there's like, if we're in a hotel, we check out the gym, we like to kind of see what's going on. So when we were recently away, the gym at the hotel in Prague was actually pretty amazing. They had 2 benches, they had a squat rack, they had dumbbells. It was Diego actually got a workout in, but the leg press machine was horrible. There's no actual range of motion. You get like such little range of motion, and that's with any of the machines. When we were in, I think, Toronto a couple summers ago, we went to the hotel gym, and all the machines were so horrible. Like, just you couldn't get full range of motion on any of the machines, and it puts you in various positions that were very uncomfortable. So I tend to like machines tend to be not really they can be a good gateway to starting a strength training program if that's all you have. But ideally, maybe you're mixing it up between a machine exercise and then more free weight exercises. Free weights can be dumbbells, kettlebells, and barbells. I was actually just putting together my new presentation for the older population, because I'm trying to do a few talks in the new year, hopefully, to kind of gain more interest from older clientele. And I was redoing the presentation I did 3 years ago, and I have a section where it talks about body weight exercises are good to a point, machines are good to a point, kettlebells are good to a point, right? And why barbells are such a good tool, a good tool to use. Yeah. I don't want to say a better tool. And I think that's the thing, is like, is it the best way? I think it's the way that's going to give you the success that you want, and where you're going to make the most progress. Ideally, weights, machines are not necessarily the way to go completely. I think that there's a place and time for that. But if I'm going to get somebody older squatting or deadlifting, I want to use a bar. Yeah. I have a 10-pound bar. I can make a bar as light as 20 pounds for somebody. If they need lighter than that, that's a pretty deconditioned, weak person. Well, maybe all they can do is pick up something off the floor, like a light box. There's that too. Okay, we can start there. But I like being able to use a bar, because it just is a little bit more natural.
Yeah. I will say my 80-year-old now that came with his program, and it is largely machine based. Mm-hmm. One reason I think for him maybe machines are decent is he gets dizzy, or his balance is. Yeah. So, there are some things that I've sort of added in or snuck into his program a little bit. And there's some things some movements that he'll just completely not want to do. And I think for very good reason. I haven't seen him have, a dizzy spell or anything like that. But right. I sure wouldn't want him falling.
No. I have clients who've been dealing with a lot of vertigo. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Over the past couple of years. And one of my 80-year-olds, one of my clients, just turned 81. And she definitely has had bouts of vertigo. So when she comes in and she's been dealing with vertigo, there's certain exercises that she just avoids, like overhead pressing.
Yeah. I actually have another client who has a history of syncope episodes, who, mm-hmm. when she overhead presses, a lot of times has to do it from a seated position.
Sure. Yeah. There's that too. Yep.
So.
Yeah,
that's a reasonable argument for using machines, and maybe if that's your regular condition, then maybe.
Yes, and I think, again, right way, wrong way. I think getting people to get out, go to a gym, go to their home gym, or go to the gym at the in your apartment building, or is going to be good for them, right? Would that be something that we would put somebody on, as far as like maybe it's the best way? No, I think plenty of people can learn how to pick up weight off the floor. They can squat their own body weight, even without even using any weights, just squatting, learning how to squat, doing step ups, learning how to press something over your head, whether it's a barbell or a dumbbell. That's going to be so much more beneficial than sitting down and, curling your legs back. And it's good for people who are already doing the other stuff, right? Yeah. The big work.
I think, and this is where you and I both sort of come back to the point where the answer to the question, what is the best type of strength training program for a person? The best type of program is the program a person will do consistently.
Exactly. So compliance.
For any reason, whether it's because of vertigo or syncope, or however you pronounce that, or because of just personal comfort level, or because that's what a person is familiar with, and that's what's available to them. If they're going to use dumbbells, kettlebells, machines for those reasons, fine, have at it, as long as you're being consistent. Is that what you or I would necessarily choose for a person? No, we would probably try and get them as close to the starting strength model as we're able to, based on whatever their movement restrictions are. But sort of along those lines too, like I get a lot of times I'll get questions from people who are interested in online coaching, and they're going to build a home gym. They don't have it yet, but they do have access to other strength training implements. And because they're sort of in that starting strength pipeline a little bit, or in that mindset, like there's so many times where people are like, well, I'm just not going to do anything until I get my gym made up.
Yeah.
They'll have a gym membership. They'll have access to dumbbells or something, but they're going to wait because they're going to build the gym first, because that's the best way. So the best way is what you can do that you're comfortable with, that you'll be consistent with, but also sometimes what you're able to do now as opposed to delaying. Because sometimes even if you're able to just get started with something that's less than ideal than what you intend to be doing, you're still you're creating and reinforcing that habit, which is also, a good place to start.
If you could see me nodding my head, it's about to like fall off my.
A little bobblehead.
Well, because you brought up such a great point, and this is hard for people to sometimes wrap their heads around, and even some coaches who want to start working with people, like, well, my client doesn't have the equipment yet. Well, what equipment do they have? Oh, they have got dumbbells and bands. Great. Start them there. Like, don't wait for them to get the equipment. It's like waiting for someone saying, "Well, I have to wait till I'm strong enough to come to the gym."
Yeah. I mean, how often
I have to wait till I'm in shape. I have to wait till I'm in shape to come to the gym. No, you don't. You don't have to be in shape. You don't have to be in any shape. You have to be here. You have to show up and be consistent and be compliant, because compliance, as Diego says, it could be the dumbest program on earth. But if you follow it, and you follow it consistently and you're complying with it, you will make progress. You'll do something. Something will change, right? I mean, a person can get stronger biking, getting on a stationary bike if they're consistent with it, right? Is that resistance training? Well, yeah, I mean, you can turn up the knob and make your legs work a little faster, but any novice, any beginner person is going to get a little bit stronger just even by biking. The next level is, of course, actual resistance work, in whatever form or shape that is. People come to us for barbell training. That's because we advertise barbell training, right? That's because we advertise it. We like it. We want people to do it. We want people to experience it. Does everybody come in right away and use a barbell on the first day? 95% of the time, yes. But then you have that 5% population who they can't do a bodyweight squat. I mean, I had a 30-year-old come in, 30-some who couldn't do a bodyweight squat, fell over. So did basically bodyweight box squats for almost a month. To gain some semblance of, of strength in the legs and movement, just learning the movement pattern. My 85-year-old who I coach online is at home and, in her house. She has a chair, she has some dumbbells, she has a band, she has a box that we can put weights in to do box deadlifts. And, and she loved when she came to my gym a couple weekends ago, I actually taught her how to deadlift. And she loved it. And she said to me, I love that so much more than the box.
Surprise.
It's exciting. It was exciting to her. She wanted a bar. She wants a bar for Christmas now, So this is, but if I had to wait and say, well, I got to wait for you to get your correct equipment. I'm doing a disservice to somebody who could benefit from just any type of program.
And also, because what you're describing with your client is like she's building some momentum, her enthusiasm is growing, she's building confidence as well as strength. And so that's all great. And the other thing too is, like, for a lot of people, if their intention is to build their own home gym, that's a pretty big financial investment.
Yes.
And then people kind of get hung up on, if they do need a modification or have an issue, maybe they need a specialty bar that can be more expensive. And so, until you get all of that chunk of change set aside, or you start out with what you think you're going to need and then find out, oh, I actually need a training bar to do overhead press. I should have gotten that. You can right where you are with what you've got and do
always. I can take the starting strength model that is geared towards barbell training, right? Using a barbell. But I can take that and I can apply that using dumbbells, kettlebells, bands, push-ups, right? It's pushing, it's pulling, it's pressing, it's picking something off the floor. Yeah. Four movements. So what do? I take my client and she'll squat, right? She'll do squats to a chair. Then she does overhead presses. She does band pull aparts. She does box deadlifts, right? I'm having her do a program that is very similar to a squat, press, deadlift program. It's just pared down in such a way with equipment that she has at her fingertips right now. So ideally, yes, you move towards maybe using a barbell, but if you are not one who knows how to lift that weight properly, that's where a coach comes in, right? Coaches help you. A good coach can help you get into the correct form, can program you, can put you on a good path. Many people don't have access to a coach. If they don't, they're trying things out on their own, they're experimenting. That's when things can go wrong, especially with programming. It always comes down to programming. But you can program any type of training, any type of resistance training to get started. And let's say you get started and you really like it and you like using your dumbbells and your kettlebell. Fine, stick with it. You're doing something as long as it's progressing, as long as you're progressing the program and not just repeating the same thing over and over again. Maybe you seek out a coach to help you with that particular program. Any coach who's a good enough coach will say, great, you have what? Fantastic. I can help you. Not, well, you don't have a barbell? Well, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
So I guess you can't do them. Right. And that was the mindset a couple of years ago, which was don't have a barbell, can't do a barbell program.
Why NTDC?
Well, I mean, the thing is that, COVID was here and things were shut down and gyms were shut down and not everybody has a space to like put a rack together and so you use what you have. The goal is consistency. The goal is doing something. The goal is moving your body. Right. And sometimes taking a break from that barbell is good. Right. And doing something different, trying something new, learning a new movement. The strength, you're building the strength there. You can always go back to the barbell. You can incorporate the barbell with the dumbbells. I mean, there's so many different ways to do a program. People, as you said in the beginning, people get caught up in that mindset of this is the program.
Yeah, like if I'm not doing this correctly, or it's not worth my time.
If I'm not doing this, I might as well not do anything. We had a camp this past Sunday, and at our Q&A and programming, we were talking about just this programming and training. And we had somebody who has a very tough job where in the summer it's nonstop. It's just they're so busy that being able to kind of carve out an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes to train is really impossible. So they wait until the winter to do all their training. Then they're sore and they can't sleep, and they keep doing a novice linear progression every single year like that. So Diego said, "Do you have 30 minutes?" Yeah. He goes, "Good. Then do something." Squat or bench or deadlift or press. Do one lift. And it was like this kind of like look of, I can do just one lift.
Yeah.
Yes, you can do just one lift. So this is important too. And I think people forget. And I said, I own a gym. If I told my clients every time they come in, they have to do one bump, bump, bump. And if they don't, they can't join. I'm not going to have a gym, because adults have lives. We're busy. And I want people to do something. And I want people to get into a consistent routine. So if that means breaking it up into 2 lifts, 1 lift, if it's morning and evening, you're still, and you're consistent with it and you're complying with it, you're going to feel much better instead of trying to cram everything in and do a 2-hour workout when you don't have 2 hours, and grinding out every reps. There's just such a disconnect to, well, if I'm not doing 3 lifts, am I doing the program? And that's where people get stuck. They get stuck in that. They get stuck in that route. And I think that's what you're seeing, what you hear and see, and maybe from people, because that's what I hear from people who are who are invested in this program. But if I'm not doing 3 lifts, am I actually lifting? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. It's okay to go into the gym and press and leave. I mean, that's, you're doing your body you'll feel better, but you're also staying consistent. And you and I keep coming back to that, but consistency and compliance, those are Diego's 2 big words.
Yeah. So the best program, the top characteristic is one that a person is able to
stick to
consistently stick to.
Yes.
Then sort of secondarily, something that reflects the model, the starting strength model, as closely as possible.
Yes.
That might vary based on equipment available. That might vary based on time available. So the programming could look different. and when you're talking about those movements, like, you've talked about basically your deadlift is, like a hip hinge movement, the squat is knee bend movement.
Right.
But in the program, 2 pushing movements, you've got a horizontal push and a vertical push. A lot of times when people get to the point where they're adding a pull-up in there, then they've got, a vertical
chin-ups,
pull as well, or a chin-up. Sometimes people will add a row in there to get like a horizontal. Is that what I mean? Row?
Yep.
But those types of movements, ones that are compound movements, that you can do with whatever implements you have available, are going to be preferable. Like when you have a choice of, if you have a choice of machines, or if you feel like machines are where your comfort level is and that's what is available to you, you can kind of apply that same filter to which machines you would choose. Like I would always put a person on a leg press over like a leg extension or a leg curl, right? Because the leg press is going to be a more compound movement. You're getting quads, hamstrings, glutes, adductor. Did I say? Yeah, adductors, abductors. You're getting all of that together, especially if you're able to lower the seat or the, depends which direction, if it's a seat leg press or laying down on the floor leg press, but depending on how much range of motion you can get. But that's always going to be better than working single muscle groups at a time. So like the idea there with the barbell is that basically mimics the way you use your body out in the real world. So compound movements, not isolated muscle groups or single joint movements. So the machines or the exercises that you choose, kind of run them through that filter. Compound movement, multiple joints involved, lots of muscle groups involved. Check. Let's go with that. And then the third thing you said also, progressing them. So not coming in and, okay, well, these are the exercises that I do. And for the next 12 months, I'm going to do exactly the same number of reps with exactly the
same way. Yeah.
The idea of progressive overload, applying that to the programming as well.
Yeah. And I think that's where, a lot of times people do go wrong. They go wrong after so many weeks or months because of programming. Right. And that's where a coach obviously comes in. Yeah. I mean, the best strength program for you is the one that you can stick to. Yeah. As Rebecca said, that's really what it comes down to. I mean, I can take squat, press, bench, deadlift, and I can do a goblet squat, and I can do dumbbell bench, dumbbell press, RDLs for my hinging. I mean, that's basically, and I can progress all that, and I can get a fine session, and I can see progress, probably week to week if I stay with those movements and I slowly add either more reps or a little bit more weight. The hard thing with the dumbbells and kettlebells, of course, is incrementally adding load. Which is why, of course, barbells are a in a sense, a superior tool, simply because you can add slower. I can add a half a pound to a bar. I can add a pound. I can add a quarter pound, right? And it does allow for, and allows for, for movement, free movement. Sort of do dumbbells. The downside is dumbbells get more cumbersome when they get heavier to hold. Yeah. They only go up 5 pounds unless you have magnetic plates. You can add to your dumbbells. They do sell those. Kettlebells, again, they're expensive. They take up a lot of space. if you're going to have like 5 pound increment, same thing. Kettlebells get heavier. They get more cumbersome to hold. So it's kind of like a trade-off. But again, if you only have those tools and you don't have the room, or you don't even, or not necessarily the interest, maybe you can get stronger and you can move better using the tools you have with a good program. And just and doing that program week in, week out, twice a week, 3 times a week, whatever works for you. I mean, there's tons of information out there, but we like barbells because of the the ability to really load slowly over time and give you more practice with that movement over time. That's what's nice about it, is we can start anybody in any place. But I would so rather teach somebody how to do a goblet squat if I could. If I was working with somebody, maybe the leg press would be great, but I would definitely also want to teach somebody how to do a squat as well, right? But it's definitely superior, I think, to over machines. It'd be like goblet squat, leg press, machines down here.
Yeah,
yeah. Machines down there. And they take up. I mean, they're too expensive. They take up a lot of room, and they're just most of the machines that are out there are just crap as far as just how they're built and how that for different, as you said, as you noticed, for different bodies, they don't all fit.
Right.
With the same body, whereas your body with a barbell, you get to squat or deadlift the way that your body makes you, right? When you get into that position correctly. It's kind of it's an interesting subject to talk about because there's so many people who are just like, nope, I only do this and this is the best way. And I don't think you can say this is the best way and this is the only way. It's a way that we're kind of biased. This is what we like. This is what we want to coach. And this is what we believe in. We believe this is a good program to put somebody on. But I can have somebody come in and do the exact same program using dumbbells until they're maybe ready mentally for a barbell, or even physically. Like maybe even that 10-pound bar on their back is just like, it's just too much for them to process. So squatting with a 10-pound dumbbell is just more easy. It's more easy on the mind. They can see the weight, they can hold it, as opposed to it being on their back and they can't see it. And they don't know how to squat when the weight's not visible to them. And I think that's really the key. That's really what interests me when I watch people in my gym, when I'm teaching people, let's say at the squat, they'll squat with a 20-pound dumbbell. They'll go up to 30 pounds. The minute I put a 10-pound bar on their back, they collapse. They fall apart. They can't squat. And it's simply because I think they can't see the weight. So it freaks them out that they're going to get stuck at the bottom.
There are some really interesting things that happen where you can see people's brains processing things differently. I wonder though too, like that the angles are slightly different, obviously. Like sometimes I think that throws people off initially just a little bit, like figuring out their balance or their angle. But
yes.
Like I think the thing that is interesting to watch people do is learning how to retract and depress their shoulders, right? Which is something that you're doing in all the lifts.
Yeah.
And
that's difficult.
When you put them in a different orientation to gravity, like you ask them to do that when they're deadlifting and their brain explodes or something.
Yeah.
Like it seems to make the most sense for people initially when they're on the bench pressing, I guess, because they've got like the tactile cue of the bench, like sort of, oh, okay, it's just the top of my shoulders touching. I guess I'm doing it right. Or, when they're trying to, sandwich themselves under the bar for a low bar back squat.
Yeah, everybody can bench. Everybody can bench.
Everybody can almost everybody. I've had
almost everybody. Okay, you've had some.
I've had a few.
I mean, but everybody lies down and that's like they're not afraid of the weight. You put that same weight or lighter on someone's back, and they fall apart. They just, because they can't. And I think, and I've said this many, many times to people, I think that when people learn how to squat and they can't see that weight, that's what panics them. That they're having to trust their own body. They're blind to that weight. It's back there. They have to hold on to it. They don't trust themselves to come back up out of the bottom, of a position. It's just something inside of them just doesn't compute. If I put them in a front squat, I guarantee you they would come up. And I think that all the other lifts, nobody ever worries about the pressing or benching or deadlifting because you can see it, but you can't see that weight in your back. So there's a lot of trust that you're walking backwards for one thing. You're looking at the ground. I'm making you squat down and bend over this bar on your back, and then I have to come up with it in the same.
Yeah.
I have to do what? And and people have agreed with me. I always said, and they said, you're right. I'm afraid of coming back up. I'm like, don't worry, you'll come back up. It's okay. You will come back up. I promise you. But until they get comfortable or more confident with that movement of how to squat, it's a very challenging thing to help people with. So that's why goblet squats are kind of a nice way to start, because man, you put that weight on in front of them, they got it. Oh, this is no big deal. Then I put the bar on their back. they can't, their brain just, they freeze up.
Yeah, like I'm trying to think that through a little bit, like from a first timer's perspective. And I wonder if there's something to like the bar being on their back and having a sense that it's going to pull them over backwards.
Oh, absolutely.
Whereas the bar, like a kettlebell in the front, well, I could just let go of it and it'll fall down in front.
And there's the counterbalance, right? Yeah. I've got weight here, and I can feel myself getting in position. But now I have to do more work. I have to do a little bit more work to think about how to keep myself in balance.
At this point, I think the expression that Fred Houts used was the train has left the station. Right, we're completely off the topic, Emily.
I don't think we are. I think we're talking about the topic of like what's a the best way to train. And we're talking about squatting, we're talking about bars, but also we're talking about why some people may prefer to use a dumbbell or kettlebell over a barbell in the beginning, right? And why a coach may want to obviously teach somebody how to do a squat with a dumbbell or kettlebell before a bar. I've had plenty of my coaches put a bar on someone's back in the beginning, and then 10 minutes later, and they're in the turf room with a dumbbell. Yeah. Because they realize they're going to get the person squatting better. Something is not clicking with the back, or they're tight, or their shoulders hurt, it bothers their shoulders, or whatever it is. But sometimes it's just panic. It's just sheer panic. So when they have a weight in front of them and you say to them, so this 10-pound dumbbell is the same as this 10-pound bar, they go, and they have to kind of wrap their heads around what they have to do when they have that bar on their back. And sometimes it's just, you don't start there. You start somewhere else with them. That's fine. You don't kick them out and say, well, if I can't teach you how to squat with the barbell, you don't belong here. And I think people are afraid of that. Sometimes they say, don't kick me out just because I can't squat with it. I'm like, why would I kick you out? Well, I can't do the program. You're doing the program. There's that kind of mentality of like, if I'm not doing it this way, am I really doing anything for my body? And that's the people who believe wholeheartedly in that program. The other people who come in, if I give them a dumbbell, they'll be like, okay.
Yeah, it's just a very rigid way of thinking.
It is. Like, it is.
They're like half full, half empty, like is that right? Or all or nothing, just all or
nothing. All or nothing mentality. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I think even though we veered off talking about squatting, but I think that's essential. Like, you might have a client come in who maybe wants to use a barbell, but then freaks out when they start using it. Well, guess what? You can say to them, it's okay. It's okay. We're going to use this today. Yeah. And we're going to work you up to that. Right. And then next time they come in, they're a little bit more relaxed about it.
And that's where, like, even with the stated goal of starting strength, getting a person as strong as possible, as quickly as possible, as much range of motion, greatest effective range of motion on and on, right? But like, to me, I always think about that bit in there, as quickly as possible, depends on so many factors.
Oh yeah.
Right? And so it can depend on what equipment you have available. It can depend on your mindset. It can depend on your schedule and your time availability. And that's okay. Like I've talked before about this idea of a pre-NLP, right? Like, there's a lot of guys who started lifting, quote unquote, the wrong way when they were 17 years old in high school with their football coach or whatever. Right. And they discover starting strength in their 30s, and now they're lifting the right way. But, meanwhile, they had 15 years of playing around in the gym, being comfortable in that space. And for women, a lot of times coming into the gym the first time and like, oh, here are the barbells. Here are all the people who use barbells who've been using them for 15 years. And we want you to just feel comfortable because you have every much as right a right to be here as anyone else.
That's right.
But it takes some time for a lot of people to get to where they feel comfortable. And that's okay.
And that's okay. And you have to find the right environment for you to feel okay in that, and I think that's important, the right place, the right coach, the right gym to feel comfortable, to get comfortable, to not be intimidated. I think a lot of my older clients who come to us, I mean, they're comfortable. They know that they belong there because they're treated as everybody else, right? They're coached the same way. Are they programmed differently? Sure, to some extent. But honestly, they're programmed the same way I would program anybody who needs that weight, who needs that programming, who needs to pull back a little bit on their lifts, who needs a accessory exercise, who needs a modification. That's across the board. Doesn't matter if you're 80, 30, 25, 17, you're going to figure out what program to put you on and make sure that you are consistent with that program, compliant with that program, not going rogue, and not doing 100 exercises and then wondering why you're not progressing. We had someone else at the camp who was asking about wanting his squat to go up. So talked about his schedule, what he does. Well, he does one big lift a week and a whole bunch of accessory work and assistance work. And Diego's like, but you want your squat to go up? Yes. Then you need to squat more. It's like, you have to pick your goal. If your goal is to lift heavy, then yes, you need to get a barbell. You need to have the right equipment. You need to have a gym. You need to have a rack. You need to maybe even have a coach. If your goal is to start a strength training program and you have dumbbells and kettlebells, great. Start there. Get a coach or look for a program, but start and do something, right? Start to kind of be consistent with practicing the movement. I was thinking about one of my online clients who, when he started with me, he had been a client at our gym way back when we had the old place. And then he moved down to Florida. With me, it was like Kentucky first or something like that. And then in Florida, and he wanted to get started and he wanted to do a barbell program. He didn't have his rack just yet. He didn't have any equipment except his dumbbells and his bench, and bands. So you know what I did? I started him on goblet squats and dumbbell bench and dumbbell rows. And I think we might have done RDLs or something like that because he had done my basic training class, which is we do all those exercises, right? Mm-hmm. And then about a month later, he got his rack and his bar. So we put all that to the side and now we squatted with a bar and we deadlifted with a bar. And it was all coached online. I never saw him in person. I knew how he moved from the last time I'd seen him, but it had been a while. But we started him on the program with the equipment he had. And then the minute he got the other equipment, we put those weights away and picked up the bar. And he's doing great. And he did great. So he did something. He wanted to get started. He didn't want to wait until he got his equipment. I didn't want him to wait. I wanted him to get into the consistency of training. Yeah. As you mentioned. And that's so important, I think, is that is building that consistency week in and week out of I'm doing something. I'm going for a walk. I'm taking a bike ride. I'm going to lift my weights. I have my program. So it was that was the best way for him to start. It was a great way for him to start. He got into a mindset of what I'm going to be doing, what the lifts are going to be like, what the program's going to look like. And, I think that's people sometimes get away from that. They forget that that barbell doesn't have to be part of it. It doesn't have to be in your program. Yeah. If you don't want it to be.
Yeah. You can make arguments for what is like empirically the best, but really what you're trying to find is what is best for you. And you don't want perfection to get in the way of good enough, right? Like, so what is the best for me right now? Find something and get started, do what you can with what you've got. Build a habit, be consistent.
Yes. I think
from there.
I think, and I think you're absolutely right. When people say resistance training, there is that kind of like, well, what are we talking about? And I know that when we talk about it, we're talking about a barbell program, barbell training, but that might not be what people have in mind. And that's okay. I mean, I think that is a good way to go. I would encourage all my clients who come in to train with me to experience working with the bar, to realize it's not as intimidating as they thought it was, and that they actually probably will enjoy it even more. Right. When my 85-year-old came in last couple of weeks ago and she deadlifted with the bar, she said to me the other day, she goes, I love that bar. That was so much better than this box. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I'm like, it is.
There's a lot of things. If you get a person started doing what they can with the equipment that they have available or the equipment that they're comfortable using, they get to a point, if you are progressively overloading the exercise, where they will just realize on their own that ergonomically a bar is so much more efficient and in many ways so much easier. And then they're like, oh, I just never, I don't know why I was afraid of that.
I mean, and that's why, and that's the reason we train those specific exercises is because there is carryover into our daily living, our daily movement patterns, right? Our movement, what we do, picking things up, putting things away, taking things off of a shelf, sitting down on the toilet, sitting on the floor with our children, getting up, walking up the stairs. I mean, and so when you go to the gym and you practice those movements and you practice keeping something close to you and picking it up correctly, it carries over into, what you do at home, what you do outside of the house. And I think that's what was noticeable to her for what she was doing at home. And also now she actually has this bar in her hand. It was like, wow, this is so much easier. But this makes sense to me now because I was already doing that. I just have something different in my hands, a different piece of equipment. It's
well, I mean, I guess as you're talking about that, another thing that sort of comes to mind in terms of like a lot of times you or I as starting strength coaches encountering people who think that they, it's all or nothing. I have to do it this way or not at all.
Yes.
But also, someone with that rigid way of thinking, if they want to get a loved one started with barbells, similarly, applying that rigid thinking to getting someone else started, you got to be careful with that too. Like a lot of times, I guess, there's the sense of, well, that's so silly. Why are you going to do that silly exercise? Or, if that's what somebody is comfortable with and you want them to start doing barbell training, encourage what they're doing, even if it is not what you believe to be optimal or the quote unquote best way to do an exercise. Encourage what they're doing, offer, other options if they express interest or, offer help if they're looking for it, but like definitely not, chastise or look down on someone who at that point in time is afraid of barbells, doesn't want to use barbells, is doing what you think of as, I don't know, doesn't the term like silly ass exercise get tossed around or that sort of thing? Like you can talk about like, just like you're describing the carryover to real life about compound movements. And when they're doing those movements out in the wild, say, oh, look, that's just like a deadlift or whatever. But having that sort of rigid thinking when you're trying to approach somebody else or what's the best for somebody else.
Yes.
Being consistent and they're doing some strength training.
Yes. You can't have that. I mean, having that rigid approach doesn't allow you to really work with too many people, right? Because you're going to have people who won't be able to get into that position for a while. And you're going to have to find something else for them to do because you'd like to work. I'd hope that you would still like to work with them and you'd want to see them make progress. So if they can't use the bar for squatting, it's not throw your hands up in the air and say, well, I guess you can't squat. No, I guess we're going to use something else instead of this because you can't physically get into the position. So I'm going to find something else that's going to work for you. I'm going to use a safety bar or a camber bar or a dumbbell or a kettlebell. I'm going to find something else for you because I want you to squat. And the client would be like, great, this person hasn't given up on me. I don't feel like a failure. I don't belong here. No, I do belong here, right? Because that could be something that somebody could think that. I have a client who has a medical condition, and it's gotten to a point where her low back is really causing her a lot of stress, because it's pulling on her the front of her. So deadlifts, squatting feels great, right? At the bottom of the position, that feels great, but not deadlifts. And she's almost got a situation that she's not pregnant, but she has that appearance, right? And she has the symptoms that kind of go along with it, like the sore low back because the weight is pulling you in the front, right? So I picked out the trap bar. And I was like, well, guess let's try trap bar deadlifting. Because if you say that your squat feels great, I bet you the trap bar deadlift's going to feel good. And guess what?
In my head, when you were talking about that, I'm like, did you pull out the dreaded trap bar?
I did. I pulled out the trap bar and I said, I bet you anything, this will feel okay, because she was ready to do the leg press. I said, the leg press is not the same as a deadlift. Like, I'd like you to do some type of deadlifting if we can. We did the trap bar, nothing. So absolutely nothing. Why? A different movement. It is more squatty, right? It is more upright, it's more squatty. It had the same kind of feelings as the squat does. Great. I can pick something off the floor now without adding to my back strain. I had a couple of my pregnant women doing that because their pregnancies were preventing them from getting to that hinge position. It was uncomfortable. I don't want you to be uncomfortable. I want you to be successful. And I'm going to find a modification for you. When we can go back to the deadlift, we will, because it does work your back. And I like to work your back, right? But right now we're going to stick with this. That's what you do. That's what you do as a coach. And that's what you do as a client. Your open mind, right? This person has has me in mind, has my best interest in mind, and they want to help me. And I also want to help myself. If it had been like cross her arms and say, no, I want to deadlift, figure out a way to make me deadlift with a straight bar, but not hurting, I can't do that. But that's not this person. And most people wouldn't probably do that if they were actually in pain. Hopefully they would want to stop. But some people don't. Some people are so hell-bent on using that piece of equipment that they will push through pain instead of giving it up and trying something new. And that is a mentality that I really have to just, I can't get behind that, because you're doing it such a disservice to yourself. Because if you think that there's this all or nothing attitude, that's a pretty common one, right?
Yeah.
All or nothing. I'm all or nothing. So it's not going to get you very far. Better to be able to think outside the box, and know that you're doing right by your body, no matter what you're doing, to a point, right? As long as it's putting you in the right direction and making you successful.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know. There's sometimes people I want to slap.
Emily, but I think that might be a common theme.
Yeah.
For various reasons.
I want to hurt people sometimes. I know that I've gotten a lot. I mean, I know that we both enjoy this. I mean, I obviously enjoy what I do. I enjoy the training. I enjoy using, the equipment. But, as I get older, and now I'm older, I just had a birthday this past Tuesday. My body has to adapt.
You're still a youngster, Emily.
I'm still young. Of course I'm still young. I'm not quite 50 yet, next year. But, I definitely don't feel the way I did 10 years ago.
Yeah.
I'll say that. Yeah. I don't feel the way I did 10 years ago. So I have to be honest with myself and learn to adapt. Diego is having to do a lot of that with himself. His elbow's been killing him. So he's been trying to get back to benching. And then he came in yesterday and he was doing some single arm work. And he said, I feel so weak. I'm going to go back to what worked for me, which was dumbbell benching and dumbbell pressing. And, he felt better. He thought he looked better. Now he just feels defeated, and everything bothers him. 5 years ago, it wasn't that bad, but you start to have to find your limitations and be open-minded to trying something new and doing something different that's still going to yield a very similar result. Yeah. More, good strength. Yeah. So good topic. Lot to discuss. We could keep going on and on, but we won't. Don't worry about it.
I think we've pretty much run it through.
Kind of exhausted that.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if those who have been listening today, if you've got any comments or questions, or just want to share an anecdote with us about your own lifting, your own training, and with what we've talked about, we'd be happy to hear from you. Stronger Together is coming up in a couple weeks. That's our December 3rd strength meet, partner strength meet. We've got about 22 lifters, so 11 teams.
You still have space.
Should go by. We still have space, but honestly, I think I like that number. Yeah. It'll go by fast.
Speedy.
We'll have Speedy Gonzalez kind of powerlifting meet. We'll be auctioning off a couple items, as we always do for the music therapy program at Gilchrist. In our show notes, there'll be a link to Gilchrist Hospice, the donation page. You can make a donation there. No amount is, of course, too small. Whatever you could choose to donate would be wonderful. The music therapy program is pretty much is only runs on philanthropy, so it is not part of. It's not really part of the Medicare, Medicaid, or insurance. It's really people who have donated and kept it alive. And there are 3 music therapists, and they're absolutely lovely ladies. One of them being my sister's best friend from high school.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
Lacey. Yeah. So, so any amount you want to donate would be wonderful. The contest is December 3rd, and we'll be taking donations up through December 3rd into December 5th. I'm sorry, December 4th. So that's in our show notes. Thanks again for joining us today. And if you want to reach either one of us, you can always reach me at Emily@5by3.com or Rebecca
at cornerstonestrengthmaryland@gmail.com.
We'd happy to answer any questions you have, or share a topic of yours and discuss that on our podcast. We'd like that too. We always appreciate people who are listening and want to hear something specific. And we will definitely look at the topic and talk about it. So join us in a couple weeks for our next one, and we'll be off. I think we decided a couple weeks in December we probably won't be doing a couple podcasts just because of the holidays. So up through like the middle of December, and then we'll take a couple weeks off to enjoy the holidays.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Have a great week, and we'll be talking to you soon. Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to 5x3 Radio with Emily and Rebecca. If you like our show and want to know more about 5x3 training, please visit us at www.5, that's FIVE, the letter X, the number 3.com. You can also find us on Facebook and Instagram. To learn more about Rebecca, please visit her website, cornerstonestrengthmaryland.com. Thanks for listening and have a great week.